Is there something lurking within your home right now that's blocking all the blessings God wants to give you? Padre Pio identified 3 specific objects that function as spiritual barriers, 3 seemingly harmless things that you might have owned for years, perhaps even received as gifts from loved ones, yet they're preventing divine grace from entering your life. And the scariest part? Most people have no idea they're even there. I'm about to reveal these 3 objects to you. I'll explain why they possess this blocking power, and I'll show you exactly what Padre Pio instructed people to do when he identified them in their homes. But I need to warn you about something first. When you discover what they are, you'll feel the urge to stop the video and check your house immediately. Resist that temptation. Watch until the end, because the 3rd object is the most dangerous of all. And if you don't know how to handle it correctly, you could make the situation worse instead of better. Have you ever noticed that some houses have a different energy about them? You walk in and you feel peace, you feel welcomed, you sense that something good resides there, and other houses, even if they're clean, organized, and beautiful, have something heavy about them. Something you can't explain, but you feel. A restlessness, a desire to leave, a sense that something is wrong. Padre Pio understood this better than almost anyone in the 20th century. He didn't just see people, he saw homes. He saw the forces that inhabited each environment. He saw the open doors and the closed doors in the spiritual realm. And over decades of ministry, he identified patterns. He discovered that certain objects, regardless of who owns them, carry the ability to block divine action, not because the object itself is evil, but because it creates an opening, a breach, a permission for adverse forces to take hold. The first object that Padre Pio identified with alarming frequency was uncovered mirrors in the bedroom. This may sound strange at first. After all, everyone has mirrors in their home, but pay close attention to what I'm about to explain, because the issue isn't the mirror itself. It's where it's positioned and in what condition. In 1951, a family from a city sought out Padre Pio in desperation. The father, Anthony, was a hard-working man who had prospered for years. He had a small business that was doing well, a close-knit family, good health, peace at home. But suddenly, in a matter of months, everything fell apart. The business began losing customers for no apparent reason. The children started fighting constantly. The wife developed a deep sadness that no doctor could explain. And Anthony felt a presence at night, something watching, something waiting. When Anthony secured an audience with Padre Pio, he expected the saint to identify some grave sin, some curse cast by an enemy, some particularly powerful demon. But Padre Pio asked a simple question. Do you have mirrors in your bedroom, large mirrors that remain uncovered during the night? Anthony was confused. Of course he did. He and his wife had installed a wardrobe with mirrored doors just months before the problems began. A beautiful, modern piece of furniture that occupied an entire wall of the room. Padre Pio closed his eyes and spoke words that Anthony would never forget. Uncovered mirrors in the bedroom are windows. During the day, when sunlight enters, they reflect that light, and they are just mirrors. But at night, in the darkness, they become portals. Not portals in the physical sense, but openings in the spiritual realm. The bedroom where you sleep is the most vulnerable place in your home. It's where your soul rests, where your defenses are down, where you are most exposed. An uncovered mirror in that environment acts as an invitation that certain entities accept with pleasure. Anthony protested. But Padre, it's just a mirror. How can an object have this power? Padre Pio opened his eyes and looked directly at him. Do you think the spiritual world is less real than the physical one? Do you think objects cannot be used as instruments? The cross is just wood, holy water is just water, the medal of St. Benedict is just metal, but you know they carry power. In the same way, certain objects carry negative power, not because of what they are, but because of what they allow. The solution that Padre Pio gave was simple. Cover the mirrors at night. Use a cloth, a sheet, anything. Before sleeping, cover them. When you wake up, you can uncover them, and while they are covered, pray an Our Father and 3 Hail Marys, asking for protection for your family during sleep. Anthony returned home and did exactly that. His wife thought it was strange at first. The children laughed, but he insisted. Every night before sleeping, he covered the mirrors and prayed. And in a matter of weeks, the change began. His wife woke up one day feeling light for the first time in months. The children stopped fighting for no reason. Old customers returned to the business. And that presence that Anthony felt at night, it simply disappeared. Padre Pio explained this to other faithful over the years. He said that the tradition of covering mirrors when someone dies isn't superstition. It's ancient wisdom. It's the recognition that mirrors are reflective surfaces, not only in the physical world, but also in the spiritual one. During death, when the soul is in transition, covering the mirrors prevents unwanted energies from using that opening. Similarly, during sleep, when our consciousness is suspended, the same precaution should be taken. But remember what I'm about to say now, because the second object is even more common and more dangerous. And you probably have several of them scattered throughout your house without knowing what they're causing. The second object that Padre Pio identified as a blocker of blessings were gifts given with bad intentions. This is more subtle and more difficult to detect, because the object itself can be completely innocent. A piece of jewelry, a painting, a kitchen utensil, a piece of decoration. The problem isn't in the object, it's in the intention of the giver. In 1949, a young woman named Lucy sought out Padre Pio with a problem that seemed impossible to solve. She couldn't maintain any relationship. Every man who approached her with good intentions ended up drifting away for no apparent reason. She was 28 years old, beautiful, intelligent, from a good family, but something invisible kept every suitor away. Padre Pio looked at her for a long moment in silence. Then he asked, "Do you have any jewelry that you received from someone who didn't like you? Any gift that you received from a person who pretended to be a friend but deep down envied you?" Lucy thought, and remembered immediately. Her aunt, her mother's sister, had given her a gold brooch when she turned 18. It was an old, beautiful piece that Lucy wore on special occasions. But this aunt, she never hid the fact that she was envious of her niece, envious of Lucy's beauty, her youth, the opportunities that came her way. She gave the gift with a smile. But everyone in the family knew that behind that smile, there was bitterness. Padre Pio explained it. When someone gives you a gift with a heart full of envy, of jealousy, of the desire that you don't find happiness, that gift carries that energy. It's as if the person deposits their malice into the object. And every time you use that object, you're carrying their malice close to your body. This piece of jewelry you wear on special occasions is pushing away every good man from your life, because the intention behind it was exactly that you would never find the happiness your aunt never had. Lucy was in shock. How could a gift have that much power? Padre Pio responded, "Human intention is powerful. God created us with the ability to bless or to curse. When you prepare a meal with love, whoever eats it receives that love. When you give a gift with hatred, whoever receives it carries that hatred. It's not magic. It's the spiritual law that governs all human interactions." The solution Padre Pio gave was specific. He told Lucy to take the jewelry and bury it in unhallowed ground, far from any church or cemetery. Bury it without ceremony. without prayer. Just return it to the earth, so that the earth would absorb that negative energy, and then make a full confession, receive communion, and ask God to close any door that object had opened in her life. Lucy did exactly that. She traveled to a rural area, found a secluded spot, and buried the jewelry. She didn't feel anything special at the moment, no dramatic revelation. But in the following weeks, her life changed. 3 months later, she met Michael, the man she would marry. A year later, she was pregnant with her first child. The invisible barrier had been removed. Padre Pio warned that this problem is much more common than people imagine. We live in a world where envy is normalized, where people who wish us ill often disguise themselves as friends, where gifts are given with hidden intentions that we never express out loud. And each of these poisoned gifts functions like a spiritual anchor. It binds us, it limits us, it blocks the blessings that God wants to shower upon us. The way to identify these objects, according to Padre Pio, was simple. Ask yourself, who did I receive this gift from? Did this person genuinely wish me well? Or was there something behind the smile? If there's doubt, if there's any suspicion that the intention wasn't pure, it's better to get rid of the object. You don't need to bury everything. Most can simply be donated or discarded. But some objects, especially jewelry that was worn directly on the body, carry a stronger charge and need to be treated with more care. Now pay close attention, because I'm about to reveal the third object, and this is the most important of all. Because while the first two are relatively easy to identify and resolve, this third one is treacherous. It hides itself, it justifies itself, it convinces you that it's not dangerous, and because of that, it remains in the homes of millions of Catholics, blocking blessings that could transform entire lives. The third object that Padre Pio identified as a blessing blocker was memorabilia from past relationships that ended badly. This includes photos, letters, gifts, any object that connects you to a person with whom you had a significant relationship that did not end in peace. In 1955, a man named Robert sought out Padre Pio in San Giovanni Rotondo. He had been married for 10 years to Emily, a good, dedicated woman who loved him deeply, but the marriage was dying. There were no violent fights, there was no infidelity, there was only a progressive distancing, a coldness that grew with each year, an inability to connect truly, to feel the love that they both knew existed somewhere. Padre Pio listened to the story and asked a direct question. Do you keep anything from a previous relationship? Something from before the marriage? Robert hesitated. The hesitation was enough. Padre Pio waited in silence. Yes, Robert admitted. Before Emily, he had been engaged to another woman. The relationship had ended badly. She cheated on him. He found out. There was a terrible confrontation. Words that should never have been said. Wounds that never healed. And Robert kept, at the bottom of a drawer, the letters she had written during their engagement. He couldn't explain why. He didn't reread the letters. He didn't feel nostalgia, but he couldn't throw them away. Padre Pio explained something that Robert had never considered. When you keep objects from a past relationship that wasn't closed in peace, you maintain a spiritual connection with that person. That connection drains energy from your current relationship. It's as if you're divided. One part of you is in the present with Emily, another part is stuck in the past with that other woman. And while that division exists, you'll never be able to fully surrender to your marriage. But there's something even deeper, Padre Pio continued. When a relationship ends with anger, with hurt, with words of cursing, even if unintentional, those energies get trapped in the objects that connect the two people. Every time you look at that drawer, even without opening it, you're renewing that connection. You're feeding that wound. You're keeping alive a curse that should have died years ago. Robert was disturbed. He didn't keep the letters out of love. He kept them out of spite. He kept them as proof of what she had done. He kept them as a trophy of his victimization. And now he understood that this trophy was poisoning his marriage. Padre Pio gave specific instructions. First, burn the letters, not throw them in the trash. Burn them. Fire purifies. It transforms the physical object into ashes and releases the trapped energy. Second, while the letters are burning, forgive the ex-fiancée out loud, not because she deserves it, not because what she did was acceptable, but because forgiveness is the only key that can open the prison that Robert built for himself. Third, confess the resentment kept for all these years. Confess it as a sin that it was, and receive absolution. Robert went home and did all of that. Emily didn't understand when he asked to be alone for an hour. She didn't understand when she saw smoke rising from the backyard. But she understood when, that night, Robert hugged her in a way he hadn't hugged her in years. She understood when she felt that something had changed, that an invisible wall between them had finally fallen. Padre Pio saw this pattern repeatedly. Marriages stalled, relationships stagnant, love lives that just didn't work. And in most cases, there was something kept. A hidden photograph, an old wedding ring, a letter never destroyed, a gift that should have been tossed years ago. These objects act like anchors. They tether a person to the past, preventing them from sailing freely toward the future God has planned for them. And it's not just romantic relationships. Padre Pio identified the same problem with friendships that ended in a fight, with family members from whom a person became estranged with bitterness, with co-workers who caused harm. Any significant human connection that ended without peace leaves traces, and these traces, materialized in objects, continue to exert influence long after people have parted ways. The solution for these kinds of blessing-blocking objects, according to Padre Pio, was a three-step process he called material liberation. First, identify all the objects that connect you to past, unresolved relationships. Rummage through drawers, closets, stored boxes, photo albums. Be honest with yourself. Second, for each object, ask yourself if that relationship ended in peace. If the answer is no, the object needs to go. Third, destroy or discard the objects while verbalizing forgiveness for the person involved. Padre Pio was very specific about the verbalization. It's not enough to simply think forgiveness. You need to say it out loud. Words carry power. When you say, "I forgive," name for action, you're using your voice, your breath, your conscious intention to break a spiritual chain. Thought alone doesn't have the same force. The spoken word does. Now let me tell you something that Padre Pio revealed only to his closest collaborators, something that connects these three objects and explains why they act as spiritual blockages. Padre Pio taught that the grace of God is like water. It wants to flow. It wants to descend. It wants to fill every available space. But just like water, it can be blocked. A rock in the path diverts the flow. A dam holds back the current. A barrier prevents passage. The three objects I just described function exactly like that. They are rocks, dams, barriers in the flow of divine grace. The uncovered mirror in the bedroom is a window opened through which grace escapes. Instead of accumulating in the environment, it leaks out. And through that same window, other things enter. The gift given with ill intentions is a dam. It carries negative energies that actively block the passage of blessings. And the objects from unresolved relationships are rocks that divide the flow. Instead of all the grace going where it should, part of it is lost, feeding connections that should be dead. Padre Pio explained this to a group of friars in 1962, a few years before his death. He said that most Catholics live with only a fraction of the grace that God wants to give. Not because God is stingy, not because they don't deserve it, but because their homes, their environments, their lives are full of blockages that they don't even know exist. And with each blockage removed, more grace flows, more blessings arrive, more transformation happens. One of the friars asked if it was enough to remove the physical objects, or if something more was needed. Padre Pio responded that the physical object was just the visible manifestation of a spiritual problem. Removing the object without addressing the root was like cutting a weed without pulling out the root. It would grow back. That's why the 3 steps were always the same. Identify the object, destroy or discard the object, and resolve spiritually the issue behind the object. For mirrors, the spiritual issue was protection during the vulnerability of sleep. Covering the mirror was the physical action. Prayer before sleep was the spiritual resolution. For gifts given with ill intention, the spiritual issue was the connection with the person who wished you harm. Discarding the object was the physical action. Forgiving that person and asking for protection against envy was the spiritual resolution. For objects from past relationships, the spiritual issue was the resentment held and the inability to move on. Destroying the object was the physical action. Forgiving the person and confessing the resentment as a sin was the spiritual resolution. Padre Pio insisted that both parts were necessary. Only the physical action without the spiritual resolution was superstition. Only the spiritual resolution without the physical action was incomplete. The two together formed true liberation. Now I want to give you a practical exercise, something you can do today in the next few hours to start unlocking the blessings in your life. First, do a spiritual inventory of your home. Start with the bedroom. Do you have uncovered mirrors that face the bed? If so, arrange something to cover them at night. It can be a simple cloth. It can be a curtain. You can even turn the mirror around if possible. The important thing is that during sleep, no mirror reflects the space where you rest. Second, think about the gifts you've received throughout your life. Make a mental list of the people who gave you important things. For each person, ask yourself, honestly, did this person genuinely wish me well when they gave this gift? If the answer is no, or if there is significant doubt, consider getting rid of that object. You don't have to do it today, but start to identify. Third, and this is the most difficult, examine your house looking for objects from past relationships that didn't end well. Photos of ex-boyfriends or ex-girlfriends, gifts from friends who became enemies, souvenirs from family members with whom you fought and never made peace. Each of these objects is an anchor, and each anchor removed is a blessing unlocked. I know this process can be emotionally difficult. Padre Pio knew that too. He said that people cling to objects because they cling to memories, and sometimes even painful memories seem preferable to the emptiness of having nothing. But he also said that God cannot fill what is already full. To receive new blessings, sometimes we need to empty what is occupying the space. If this content is touching you, if you are starting to identify objects in your own home that may be blocking your life, I have a request. The Super Thanks button down below is a way for you to support the continuation of this work. Every contribution helps to keep these truths reaching more people. People who, just like you, need to hear what Padre Pio taught. People who are living with blocked blessings without knowing why. Padre Pio spent 50 years receiving people in San Giovanni Rotondo, thousands of souls who arrived lost and left transformed. He saw what no one else saw. He knew what no one else knew. And he dedicated his life to sharing this knowledge. This channel tries to do the same, bringing you revelations that can permanently change your spiritual life. When you click the Super Thanks button, you're saying that this knowledge has value, that these truths deserve to be spread, and that the work of preserving and transmitting Padre Pio's teachings must continue. Every contribution, no matter how small, is a vote of confidence in this mission. But let's get back to the main topic. Padre Pio didn't just identify the objects that block blessings. He also taught us how to create an environment that attracts divine grace. He said that a Catholic home should be an extension of the Church, a sacred space where the divine presence is invited and honored. He recommended that every house have a prayer corner. It doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be elaborate. It could simply be a shelf with a crucifix, a picture of the Virgin Mary, a blessed candle. The important thing is that it's a space dedicated exclusively to prayer, a place where you go to talk to God. This corner acts as a spiritual beacon. It attracts grace. It establishes the divine presence in your home, and it counterbalances any negative influences that may exist. Padre Pio also recommended regularly blessing the house. He said that holy water should be sprinkled in the rooms at least once a week, and that a priest should be invited to bless the home at least once a year. These practices weren't superstition for Padre Pio, they were spiritual maintenance. Just as a physical house needs regular cleaning to prevent dirt from accumulating, a spiritual house needs regular blessing to prevent unwanted energies from accumulating. Another important teaching from Padre Pio was about what shouldn't be in a Catholic home. He was adamant against any object linked to occult practices, even if they seem harmless. This includes astrology books, tarot cards, even if they're just decorative, symbols of other religions that invoke entities, objects brought back from trips to places with a strong presence of other spiritualities. He once told a story about a family who had serious spiritual problems, voices, apparitions, constant fear. When Padre Pio investigated, he discovered that the husband had brought back a set of figurines from a business trip to the East. He thought they were beautiful. He didn't know what they represented. He thought they were just decorations. But those figurines were images of deities from another religion, and by placing them in his house, he had unknowingly invited those entities into his home. The solution was simple, but difficult for the husband. He had paid a lot of money for the figurines. He thought they were beautiful, but Padre Pio was inflexible. These images need to leave your house. Don't give them to anyone. Destroy them completely, and then have your house blessed by a priest. The husband resisted at first, but when he saw that his children couldn't sleep because of the fear, he gave in. He destroyed the figurines, called a priest, and the problems ceased in a matter of days. Padre Pio explained that it doesn't matter whether you believe in the power of certain objects or not. The power exists regardless of your belief, in the same way that a virus infects you even if you don't believe in viruses. A spiritual influence affects you even if you don't believe in spirits. Ignorance is not protection. Knowledge is. That's why he insisted so much on educating the faithful about these matters. He said that the modern church had abandoned this teaching, that young priests no longer believed in these things, that seminaries taught theology but didn't teach spiritual warfare, and as a result, Catholics were unprotected, living in houses full of spiritual blockages, with no idea how to resolve them. This video is an attempt to change that, to bring back the knowledge that Padre Pio freely shared, to arm you with the tools you need, to clean your spiritual house, and open the floodgates for the blessings that God wants to pour out on you. One last story before we finish. In 1967, a year before his death, Padre Pio received a visit from an elderly woman named Teresa. She was 80 years old and had been trying to see Padre Pio for decades, but had never been able to. Finally, that year, she got an audience. Teresa said that her life had been a sequence of tragedies. She lost children young. She lost her husband in an accident. She lost her house in a fire. Every time something good seemed about to happen, something terrible came and destroyed it. She asked Padre Pio why God had cursed her like this. Padre Pio looked at her with a tenderness that witnesses said they had never seen before. And then he said something she would never forget. God hasn't cursed you, daughter. You've cursed yourself. For 70 years, you've been holding on to a hatred that's been poisoning your life. Teresa was shocked. What hatred? Padre Pio explained, when you were 10 years old, your mother gave you a gift, a small brooch, that had belonged to your grandmother. But your older sister wanted that brooch. And when your mother died, your sister took the brooch from you by force. You never forgave her. And that 70-year-old grudge has created a barrier that has blocked almost all the divine grace that God tried to give you during your entire life. Teresa began to cry. She had consciously forgotten about that episode, but deep down, she knew. She had hated her sister her whole life, even after her sister died, even after decades of not thinking about it. The hatred was there, festering, blocking, destroying. Padre Pio asked her to make the choice to forgive right there, in that moment. It didn't matter that her sister had already died. It didn't matter that 70 years had passed. Forgiveness was necessary to free Teresa herself. And there, in the confessional of San Giovanni Rotondo, Teresa forgave. She cried like she hadn't cried since she was a child. And she felt, for the first time in decades, a lightness that she couldn't explain. She lived 3 more years after that confession, and in those 3 years she told her family that she had more peace than in her entire previous life combined. Not because the tragedies were undone, not because the dead came back, but because finally, and at 80 years old, she had removed the blockage that was preventing divine grace from reaching her. Padre Pio cried when he heard about Teresa's death. He cried with joy, the witnesses said, because she had succeeded. At the end of her life, she had freed herself, and now she was where grace flows without obstacles, forever. So I ask you now, how much longer are you going to wait? How many more blessings need to be blocked before you take action? How many more opportunities need to pass before you clean your spiritual house? The 3 objects are there: the uncovered mirrors in the bedroom, the gifts given with bad intentions, the reminders of unresolved relationships. Some are easy to identify, others demand honesty with yourself. But all can be addressed. All can be removed. All the floodgates can be opened. Comment below which of these 3 objects impacted you the most. Write 1 if it was the mirror. Write 2 if it was the gift with ill intent. Write 3 if it was the mementos from past relationships. And if you identified more than one in your life, write the numbers together, 1, 2, 3, or any combination that applies. Padre Pio said that when we declare our intentions, they gain power. When we write down what we're going to do, we publicly commit ourselves. When we share our journey, we open a space for divine grace to enter. You are not alone on this journey. Padre Pio is interceding for you at this moment. He sees every blockage in your life. He sees every blessing that is waiting to be released. And he is praying that you find the courage to do what needs to be done. The floodgates can be opened today. The blessings can start flowing now. The only person who can decide that is you. Padre Pio dedicated his entire life to freeing souls. 50 years with the Stigmata, thousands of hours in the confessional, countless battles against the demon during the night. All of this so that people like you could find the way back to God. He saw what no one else saw. He knew what few understood, and he shared this knowledge freely with anyone who sought his guidance. What you've heard today isn't just theory. These are real experiences of real people who sought out Padre Pio and were transformed. Anthony with his mirrors, Lucy with her poisoned jewelry, Robert with his letters from the past, Teresa with her 70-year-old grudge. Each of these stories is a testament to the power that physical objects can have on our spiritual life. The Church has always known this. Sacramentals exist for this very reason. Holy water, blessed candles, consecrated medals, scapulars, all of these objects carry grace because they have been dedicated to God. Similarly, objects can carry the opposite when they are contaminated by bad intentions or unresolved connections. Padre Pio said that the modern Catholic lives in a tragic paradox. He believes in the power of sacramentals for good, but doubts the power of other objects for evil. This inconsistency leaves millions of the faithful vulnerable. They use holy water, but keep gifts from enemies. They carry medals, but keep photos of toxic relationships. They pray the rosary, but sleep facing uncovered mirrors. Spiritual coherence, according to Padre Pio, demands that we treat the material world with the same seriousness with which we treat the spiritual world, because the two are connected. What happens in the physical affects the spiritual. What exists in the material influences the invisible. You now have the knowledge. You know what the three objects are. You know how they work. You know what to do with each of them. The only question that remains is, will you act? Padre Pio is interceding for you at this very moment. From heaven, he looks at your home. He sees the blockages that you don't even know exist. He sees the blessings that are waiting to be released, and he's praying that you find the courage to do what needs to be done. And the decision starts now.